Now, a 75-year-old woman has been discharged from hospital. This after Margaret Holloway was struck by a bullet allegedly fired from Kebima Patswe's funeral on Sunday. Holloway was enjoying the sunshine at her old age home in West Dean when she was hit. Doctors have, however, failed to remove that bullet. Carl Niehaus joins us now live just to give us a comment on this particular story. Mr. Niehaus, very good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us now. You were obviously there in West Dean at the funeral. Please talk to me about the mourners that were firing shots in the air. Were you aware that they were doing so on the day?
Oh, good afternoon. The funeral of Comrade Kebima Patsu was quite an expression of the love and care that the people of South Africa, and especially eNCA, felt for their president and for someone who championed the rights of eNCA military veterans and military veterans in general. Yes, I was at the funeral, and so was many other people, including the national chair of the African National Congress, Mr. Gwede Mantashe, and also the national executive and national working committee members in the persons of Comrade Nomvula Mokonyane and also Mr. Dakota Lekhutle. So there were several people there. eNCA has consistently had a position that there must be a careful and disciplined and responsible use of any firearms. We've issued many statements about this. There were some shots being fired. Where those shots came from exactly and how this was executed is something which I cannot comment on more than any of the other persons that I've just mentioned to you. So I think if questions have to be asked, can I just finish my last sentence? If questions wants to be asked about this, let us ask all the people who were present at the funeral, and I understand that the police are busy with an investigation. I wanted to say allegation because that is correct. As you quite correctly said at the beginning of this interview, at this stage, there are no hard facts beyond an allegation that a bullet came from that funeral proceedings of Comrade Kebima Patsu, and there still has to be, obviously, many tests, including forensic tests, that will have to be made.
Mr. Niehaus, you're saying you were not aware of the persons that were firing these guns and so forth, but, you know, at a cemetery, guns are incredibly loud. I mean, surely something would have gone off. One would have looked in a particular direction and one would have engaged those people. Are you saying you did not see or hear anything at all?
No, I didn't say that. In fact, I said to you just a moment ago that I heard gunshots being fired, but I cannot tell you who had fired those gunshots. That is the statement that I've made.
So you couldn't tell who was firing those, but there were guns at the funeral itself. It's illegal, firstly, just to fire a gun in public. Firstly, what would you do? That investigation takes place, and then it's found that the bullet did come from a gun from somebody who was at the funeral. What's the next step for you?
Well, I don't know what you're asking me. You're asking me now to make conjecture with many ifs and buts. As I said to you, there is a police investigation. Let that police investigation proceed. At the same time, I've stated to you very clearly that Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association has many times made calls for the responsible use of firearms. I'm aware that there's a culture of firing guns at funerals, which is part of the military culture of Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association, not so much, but of the background of eNCA. And I'm aware that there had been consistently a call that such shots should be done with blanks and not with live ammunition. Now, I cannot comment beyond that. I can only refer to the many statements that I myself, and in fact, Comrade Kebima Patsu, who had passed on and whose funeral we are discussing now, had made in that regard. And what I would like to have seen in terms of the reporting from yourselves and many other media is that you do not only concentrate on the fact that there had apparently been gunshots and an allegation that someone had been hit by a bullet, but also the whole positive event that happened with that funeral, the expression of love and care and comradeship that came out of that funeral, both at the funeral proceedings and also at the graveyard. You know, I'm surprised that there's always this intention to concentrate on the negative from the side of the media. I'm also surprised.
But Mr. Niehaus, is that fair? Because we did cover, the funeral. We've been covering that particular story all along.
The subsequent commentary, the subsequent reporting, the subsequent interviews always, and in your instance here, concentrate on the negative. Can I deal with another issue? I've been questioned several times now about whether we complied with COVID-19 regulations. We tried our absolute best, and the media will be able to report that, to comply with COVID-19 regulations under difficult circumstances because Comrade Kelly Mphatsu was a public figure and a very popular person. But I haven't heard that the same questions had been asked of President Cyril Ramaphosa when he was in situations where there was clearly a breaking of COVID-19 regulations at the funeral of Comrade Jackson Mthembu and also at the funeral of Comrade Andrew Mnangeni. Now, why is there always this concentration on certain persons, certain events, and not on others? Selective reporting and an attempt to provide selective justice is not justice and is not fair reporting at all.
Well, okay, thank you so much, Carl Niehaus, for speaking to us. But we'll await the investigation, and we'll see whether the bullet that is lodged in this 75-year-old lady was fired from one of the guns at the funeral. So thank you so much. And maybe we can have that conversation at that point, after that investigation is complete. Mr. Niehaus, they're getting in touch with us, wanting to make a comment on this particular issue.